Old Mr. Harold Whitaker had lived alone in the crumbling Victorian house at the edge of Chestnut Grove for nearly 20 years. Ever since his beloved wife Margaret had passed away in her sleep on a stormy December night, leaving behind nothing but silence, old perfume in her clothes, and a deep sadness that crept into the walls like mildew. Each day since, Harold followed the same quiet routine. Tea at dawn, a walk through the overgrown garden, lunch at noon, and precisely at 6 p.m. He would wheel out an old wooden rocking chair Margaret's favorite hand, place it across from his own on the front porch, talking softly to the empty seat as though she were still there, sharing the stories of the day, the temperature of the tea, the way the neighbor's cat had clawed at his door, and always ending by saying, "See you tomorrow, love," before carefully covering the empty chair with a faded wool blanket and returning inside with the slow, dragging steps of a man who had long since made peace with ghosts. Of course, whispered, speculated, and sometimes even watched from their curtains, muttering that poor old Harold had lost his mind, that his grief had eroded reality until all that remained was habit and memory. But they couldn't deny the eerie truth that the chair never seemed to gather dust, never appeared empty in photographs. And once a mailman swore he saw the figure of a woman in a pale dress vanish into the chair like smoke at sunset. Things began to grow stranger in the fall of that year.
When the leaves turned to ash gray, instead of orange, and the air around Harold's house felt colder than the rest of the town.
And children walking past the gate claimed to hear two voices speaking in the dusk, one soft and feminine, though no one else was ever seen except for Harold. Now paler than ever, his eyes hollow but somehow calm, like someone who already knows the end of the story and is only rereading the last pages for comfort. On Halloween night, a local teenager dared to sneak onto the porch after dark, hoping for a laugh, perhaps a photo, but when he approached the empty chair, he heard whispers, dozens of them all around him, some behind his ear, some from inside his chest, saying, "He's not alone," and he ran screaming into the night, never speaking again, his hair turned snow-white by morning. As the town buzzed with fear and fascination, Harold remained undisturbed, simply continuing his routine with growing tranquility, until one particularly icy November evening he did not emerge for tea nor for lunch. And the porch remained empty at 6, the two chairs untouched, unmoved, and for the first time in decades, the street outside his home felt lifeless. Like something essential had been removed, a string cut in the great web of time. Concerned, the neighbors finally called the police, and when the officers entered the house, they found it perfectly clean, the floors, dusted the windows, wiped the fireplace warm, and Harold, seated in his armchair in the living room, his hands folded, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face, with 2 teacups on the table in front of him, both empty but still steaming, and an old photo album laid open to a picture of Harold and Margaret on their wedding day, both young and alive and full of the light that had faded from him years ago. The rocking chair on the porch swayed gently in the wind, even though there was no breeze. And on the table beside it lay a folded note in Harold's trembling handwriting. "She waited long enough. I promised I would sit with her one more time, forever." And though the police declared it a peaceful death, the townspeople knew better, because from that day on, no one could get close to the house without hearing laughter and whispers through the air. And many swore that both chairs rocked in perfect harmony each night at 6 sharp. The new family that moved in 6 months later lasted only 1 week before fleeing in terror, claiming their daughter had made a friend named Margaret who sat on the porch and smiled at her, inviting her to come rock a while. And after that, the house was left abandoned, rotting slowly as ivy claimed the walls and crows nested in the chimney. But no one dared remove the 2 rocking chairs, which remained untouched. One always slightly warmer than the other, the blanket still folded neatly across the seat, waiting for the next soul who dared sit and listen to the soft, eternal conversation of love that even death could not silence.